at some point, I know people are going to ask, well, Larry, what is the best carburetor for my car? And there's a lot of factors that depend on that, but if we look at the development of the Corvair carburetor, the ones that have the most amount of improvements, yet the less concessions for smog equipment is probably our best choice. So starting out as the very best carburetor to use would be a 1966 or 1967 carburetor for an engine without AIR, that's air injection reactor, or smog for short, because it's got all the features that we want to have. It's got the later style offset Venturi cluster spokes. It's got the idle vapor vent for easier hot starts. It's got the power enrichment circuit, so the car won't lean out at high-speed operation. And it's got an upper idle air bleed inside the throttle bore so that the carburetor has a good transition from idle to power speed. So that's our best overall choice. As a 1.5, it's really close, and that would be the 66 carburetor with air injection or smog, the early style, because that early style not only has our internal adjustable idle mixture, the screw down inside the bore, but it's also got our power enrichment circuit in it. Keep in mind, this is a pretty rare carburetor. It's only going to be on the 1966 cars delivered in California with the smog pump and in early production. So you're not going to find a lot of these around, but that'd be a good second choice to the number 1 style carburetor. In our number 2 position, we actually have a 3-way tie almost here. So if our goal is for best highway performance, say you do a lot of highway driving, I would choose a 1965 carburetor. It's got our offset Venturi cluster, our important idle vapor vent, and the power enrichment circuit. It doesn't have any concessions for the smog system at all. But that's a good overall carburetor, especially if you like to put your foot in it. If you really don't care about putting your foot in, most of your driving is around town, low speeds, club events, that sort of thing, unless your club event happens to be an autocross or a road course. The late 66 through early 68 smog carburetor would probably work the best for you. It's got the offset Venturi cluster, it's got the idle vapor vent, it's got the upper idle air bleed, and it's got the adjustable internal idle mixture. Now, it does not have the power enrichment circuit on it, but if you're driving the car pretty conservatively, you really are not going to miss that. Power enrichment only comes in when you're putting your foot down. So this would be a good alternative depending upon your driving style, because it will help you have the best low-speed operation. And the runner-up for that is the late 68 and 69 style smog carburetor, just like that one. The difference is this has a non-adjustable internal idle mixture screw inside here. It's not actually a screw, it's a fixed point. I've never had a lot of problems getting the good idle out of one of those cars if the engine was in good shape. So that would be another good choice if you can't find one of the earlier ones, the 66 to 68 style. A later 68 would probably do. And just as a point here, these two carburetors, they're both from 68s, both with air injection, but you see the bases are different on them. So that really doesn't, from two different manufacturing plants. So that's why the bases look different. So don't just go by the base, go by the features, because that's the only real difference between the plant is how the base is shaped. And then, in our number 3 overall is going to be our 1964 carburetor. It's set up with the offset Venturi cluster spokes, and it's got the idle vapor vent. And that was the real big problem with the earlier Corvairs, is hot engine restart, because they didn't have an idle vapor vent. So if you've got a 62 or 3 car, putting on a set of 64 carburetors is really going to help you out. And you could, if you were industrious, you could modify a 60 Corvair carburetor or a 61 by using a 64 carburetor as your basic starting point. You could make the important internal features applicable to your 61 or 60 carburetor. 60s, not so much a problem because the engine compartment doesn't get as hot as all the others. So 60's unique, of course, on everything. But the 61 car could certainly benefit from having that idle vapor vent to help it start when it gets hot. So that's my pick for the best carburetors. Again, jet size, I would start with the stock recommendation for that carburetor. It's going to depend upon the altitude you're at, the temperatures, your driving situation, the quality of the fuel. I can't tell you exactly what jet is best for you, but start with what the factory figured out first. They spend a lot of time checking it out and doing things. Overall, you probably have to go 1 or 2 thousandths bigger on the cars that have to use ethanol, which is almost all of us now. So you might want to go a little richer than the stock jet. Be careful with the power enrichment carburetors because remember, it works in conjunction with the power enrichment circuit. So don't go overboard on a jet size and that because you're supplementing that with the power enrichment. So that's my pick.